Good morning. Today I'm going to be taking a seminar on the topic pricing policy under imperfect competition. Anna just finished explaining two types of it, which is monopoly and monopolistic competition. There are two more which I'm going to be further explaining, which is oligopoly and monopsony. To start off, let's start off by just defining what an oligopoly is. An oligopoly is a market form wherein a market or industry is dominated by a small group or large sellers. Okay, so moving on to the features of oligopoly form of market. The first and very important one is few firms. So we all know that oligopoly only consists of a few firms. As to why all these firms are interdependent in nature. So if one firm takes a particular action, another firm will react to it. So that is why they're very interdependent on each other's decisions. The second one is importance of advertising and selling costs. So in a form of oligopoly, like I said, all the firms are extremely vigilant about each other's action. So if any firm increases or decreases the price, there is an immediate reaction from the other firms. Therefore, advertising acts as an extremely powerful tool in oligopoly form of government. The third one is group behavior. Since oligopoly has only a few number of firms, it is very obvious that these firms tend to have group behavior, and especially in forms like collusive oligopoly, they form cartels and take group decisions on price and output. Fourth one is competition. So in a form of oligopolistic market, the presence of competition is high. So since under oligopoly there are a few sellers, a move of one seller immediately affects the rivals. So each seller is always alert and keeps a close watch over the moves of its rivals in order to have a counter move immediately. The next one is barriers to entry of firms. So in a market form of oligopoly, there are no barriers to entry or exit from it. But in certain cases, like closed form of oligopoly, there is certain barriers to entry. So it depends on long run or short run. The next one is existence of price rigidity, and this feature is also very closely related to the pricing policy of oligopoly. So price rigidity basically refers to the situation where if one firm increases its price with a view to increase its profits, the other firms will not follow the same. But if a firm decreases its price with a view to increase its profits, then the other rival firms will follow. Hence, no firm would be able to take any sort of advantage of independent price cuts or price increases. The next one is lack of uniformity. So because of the asymmetrical sizes of the various different firms in an oligopoly, there is a lot of lack of uniformity. And lastly, the demand curve of an oligopoly is indeterminate. Okay, moving on to the pricing policy in oligopoly. This policy is best explained through a kinked demand curve. Now, the kinked demand curve was a theory that was put forward by Paul M. Sweezy and R. L. Hall and C. J. Hitch. So through this, it's observed that in many oligopolist markets, the prices tend to remain very inflexible for a very long time, like we mentioned in the features of price rigidity. Even in the face of declining costs, they tend to change very infrequently. So that is when the kinked demand curve hypothesis came to being, to explain the reason behind the price rigidity in an oligopoly. So according to this kinked demand curve, the demand curve facing an oligopolist has a kink, and this is at the level of the prevailing price, and this kink exists because of two reasons, and that is the segment above the prevailing price level is highly elastic, as you can see here, and the segment below the prevailing price level is highly inelastic, as you can see here. The difference in these elasticities is due to the assumption of the kinked demand curve hypothesis. So this basically means that if, like I mentioned before, If a oligopolist lowers the price, all the other firms will follow. However, if he raises the price, no competitor will follow. So in short, the oligopolist will not be able to enjoy any independent benefits of changing his price policy. Okay, so the next topic that we're talking about is pricing under collusive oligopoly. So, like I explained earlier, collusive oligopoly is a form of oligopoly where there's cooperative oligopoly. So, all the firms are cooperative with each other and they work together. So, when they work together, they form groups called cartel for their mutual benefits and advantages. And a cartel is a formal agreement among firms regarding pricing or market sharing. Now, firms often get together and they set prices or maximum total industry profits or even outputs. And this collusive oligopoly resembles monopoly and extracts the maximum amount of profits from the customers. So here in this figure, we can see that the marginal cost curves of each firm is summed horizontally to get the whole industry's marginal cost curve, and the profit maximizing output and equilibrium price PO are determined simultaneously by equating the cartel's total marginal cost with the industry's marginal revenue curve. So each individual firm can easily find its output by equating its marginal cost to the predetermined industry profit maximization marginal cost level. So now moving on to price leadership. Now, price leadership is basically since in oligopoly there's interdependence and a firm does not have an independent character to decide its prices or its output levels. When there are differentiated products in the market, it is obvious for the prices to change and shift. So therefore, in this situation, oligopolists may entrust the price determination in one firm. So one firm sets the price and that particular firm is known as the leader, and this concept is known as price leadership, wherein one firm takes the leadership to set the price and level of output for all the firms. So this is divided into three, which is price leadership by a low cost firm. Now this is where the cost of production is used as the criteria. So the firm which has the lowest cost of production would be given the task of price leadership. The next one is price leadership by the dominant firm. Now this is where the criteria is on the basis of market share. So the firm with the highest market share will assume the role of price leader. And the last one is price leadership of barometric type. So in a situation where both the firms are equally large and dominant, and a single firm cannot be found out, the one firm with the most experience, the most respected and the most old firm will be given the title of price leader. So that is what barometric type means. Okay, so moving on to the last one, which is monopsony. So a monopsony is a market condition in which there is only one buyer who substantially controls the market as the major purchaser of goods and services offered by many would-be sellers. So the features of a monopsony are: one, there's only one single buyer and that buyer controls the demand side of the market completely. Second is there's no alternatives or there's no substitutes or alternatives. So a monopsony achieves single buyer status because the seller has no alternative buyers for their goods, and this is the key characteristic that usually prevents monopsony from existing in the real world in its ideal form. The last one is barriers to entry. So in a monopsony, often it maintains single buyer status due to the restrictions on the entry of other buyers into the market. And this is mainly because of government licensing or franchising, resource ownership, patent and copyrights, high startup costs, decreasing average total cost. So finally, to end, I'm going to explain the pricing under monopsony, which is very similar to a monopoly, because just as a monopolist is able to influence the price of his product by the amount he offers for sale, similarly here the monopolist is able to influence the supply price of his purchase by the amount he buys. So here in this diagram, we can see the determination of price in a monopsony is explained. The supply curve of the industry is the average cost of the monopolist, and it is from the industry that he buys the product. Now this is represented by the ACS curve, this one, and the MC is its corresponding marginal cost curve that you can see here, and the MU is the marginal utility curve of the monopolist. So the monopolistic equilibrium is established in the point E, where the marginal utility of the product to the monopolist equals the marginal cost. So the MU equals the MC. That's the point E where equilibrium is reached, and he buys OM amount of quantity at this equilibrium point, and at OA price, that is here, at OA price, which is the supply price for that output, as you can see, ACS and OA, so that is the supply price for that output. The surplus obtained by the monopolist in the area DEBA, so the difference between what he's prepared to pay, which is ODEM, and what he actually pays, which is OABM. So it's basically DEBA equals ODEM minus OABM. So that gives you the surplus obtained by the monopolist in the area DEBA. So that is how the pricing under a monopsony works. To conclude our entire seminar, first we spoke about pricing policy under perfect competition, which Anirudh explained, and then we moved on to pricing under imperfect competition, under which Anna explained monopolistic competition and monopoly, and I followed to finish off with oligopoly and monopsony. Thank you.